A good day to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to this edition of The Living Legends. And in this episode, we're going to be speaking to a man who has done so much in rugby. We can say that for the last 42 or 43 years, his life has revolved around rugby in one way or another, since his days in high school, through university, and also being a player at the national team, coaching clubs and 2 national teams, and eventually getting into academia and doing a study on rugby and talent development. On The Living Legends tonight, we speak with a man who's won the Kenya Cup as a coach back-to-back, 3 times in a row with KCB, Coach Kenya 7s, Coach Kenya 15s, Dr. Michael Tank Otieno. And Daktari, you know, we're not used, we're now getting used to speaking to you as Dr. Otieno because we always knew you as Tank. Pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, straight, this biographical story, we will basically start with your early life, where you were born, where you grew up, primary school, getting to high school.
Yeah, I was born actually in Kisumu. And my primary school was basically, I was in a school called Zaverian Primary School for 7 years, where I did my certificate of primary education. And then I went to Alliance High School for my secondary and the higher secondaries. Yeah, from Form 1 to Form 4 and then Form 5 to Form 6. And
at what point did you pick up, the sport of rugby? Because I think looking at the timelines that are there, rugby was more concentrated on the former schools meant for the white people. We're talking about Lenana, we're talking about St. Mary's Nairobi School, Rift Valley Academy.
Yeah, actually, in my primary school days, I was more of a hockey player, hockey and soccer. Yeah, I was not exposed to rugby at all. And when I went to Alliance High School is when I now got exposed to rugby. And actually, I used to play soccer. In fact, the name Tank came from soccer, not even rugby, because when I got to first form, I managed to play for the first 11 soccer team at the age of 13, which was quite an achievement those days. Yeah. So now, after that is when my then captain, Meshach Kidenda, came and then made me the captain of the Baby Calls. We had this Baby Calls team, which was basically Form 1 and Form 2. Yeah, and from there is when I learned the game. And
quite an interesting one, that you come from a hockey background in Kisumu. You go to a school with such a hockey heritage, with a great hockey heritage, Alliance High School.
Yeah.
You didn't pick it up? What happened?
No, I mean, it was possible to play all 3. I played hockey, I played rugby, and I played soccer. Yeah, because they were played in different terms. Hockey was in first term. Rugby was in second term, and soccer was in third term. So it was possible to play all 3.
All right. Entrenching yourself as a hockey player under Meshach Kidenda at Alliance. Tell us about the growth from the Colts to the
Yeah, you see now, in fact, I ended up being appointed the captain of the Baby Colts team. Yeah, so all the way in first and a bit of second form, I played for Baby Colts, and then I jumped. I jumped probably up to second 15 from Baby Colts. That was around third and fourth form. And then by the time I was actually in my fourth form, I started playing for the first 15 rugby team in Alliance.
That progression, and knowing that you are playing your playing role as a halfback was, that was a very competitive position for some of those people. And what were the things that helped you grow and get identified to the senior team by the time you were doing your O-levels?
Basically, I think it was my ability at soccer that helped me to transform into rugby very easily. And I also used to watch and admire some of the senior players like Jackson Omaido, Walter Omaido, who are actually big names in rugby even when they were in school. People like John Akatsa, people like Chief Edebe, people like Wycliffe Mukulu. And really, I got to love the game and I got to admire the way they were playing. And I decided that, look, can I also be able to get to that level? Yeah.
Now, here is, the story is for you, I think for you as a player, looking back at the history, is that when you went to play at in the John Andrews Trophy, and you started and Alliance shocked the established names, RVA, Nanam, I mean, all that. What was that moment?
That actually was one of the moments I can never forget, because I remember that Saturday morning, our then coach, Jack Coyne. Jack Coyne was our coach. He was a non-dis player, and he actually dropped us at Lenana School and just left us there because it was obvious that we were not going to get anywhere. So I was left in charge of the team, and amazingly, we started off and beat, I think it was Nairobi School and Starehe. And it was that system of 3 or 4 pools, and you had to top your pool to get to the semi-finals.
Yes.
Yeah. So we topped our pool, and now we were going to meet Lenana, who were actually the hosts and the defending champions. And I don't think they had ever lost in Lenana. So what was amazing is that the spectators did not even come to watch our game. They went to watch RVA, the other semi-final, because it was a foregone conclusion that that Lenana was going to beat us. And when they came back, the score was 18-0, by the way. We scored 18 against Lenana.
And those were the days when a try was 4 points.
A try was 4 points, and then when you convert, it's 6. So we scored 3 tries, and I converted the 3 tries.
The football boots again.
Yeah. I tell you, it was unbelievable. The Lenana guys could not just believe it. Yeah, and these were renowned players like Dan Kimoro, David Madara, James Mushiri. They were tough players. Yeah. So all I told the players is there's no point of coming this far, beating Lenana, and then in the final we lose it. Yeah, and it was amazing. We beat RVA 26-4 in the final.
Wow.
Yeah, it was 26-4. Yeah.
So that, and at that point in time, you say your former your coach was a non-dis player. You're still in high school, and non-dis come up and drop a message and say, can we have Michael playing for us?
Yeah, actually it was my coach, Jack Coyne. Jack Coyne would get permission for me, drive me over to Parklands on a Wednesday for training. Yeah, and then I started off by playing for the non-dis second team. At that time, non-dis, it was difficult to break through to the first team.
Yeah.
Yes, there were great players there like Tom Olahead, George Roy, Peter Evans, Mike Evans himself, who was our captain, my coach Jack Coyne, who was a prop. It was so difficult to break into the first team, and I was like 18 years old. Yeah, so I started off by playing for the second team. But that year in the Kenya Cup final, it was split. Teams would be split into 2 sides. So non-dis Lions and non-dis Tigers got into the final. And I managed to get a slot and play for non-dis Tigers. I was a sub, but they brought me in to play for non-dis Tigers in the 1979 Kenya Cup final. So I actually managed to play in the final of Kenya Cup at the age of 18. Yeah,
not many players do that. I think sometimes they say for you to break it through to international level, they want you at 19, because ideally at that time your frame is fully formed, your physiological development is done.
Yeah.
How did you push around with what I would consider to be very physical guys who were playing then?
Yeah, I mean, it was just focus, determination, and passion to play, and more of it was just the determination to play. So really, if you really want to go and do something, I believe you can go and do it. That was the drive.
Here you are, you leave Alliance and you join Kenyatta University. Then you play for Black Blood. What was that switch from Nondi's high performance now to the varsity side?
Yeah, actually, from Nondi's, before I went to the university.
Oh yeah, there was a gap.
There was a gap, and I joined Mwamba. But at that time, I was also working for Barclays Bank. So I also participated in the establishment of the Barclays Bank, the formation of the Barclays Bank rugby team. Yeah, but then now when I had to go to campus, then naturally, because there was this team called Black Blood that also was not so bad. I mean, Black Blood was good. Yeah, so I got assimilated into the Black Blood setup, and I was actually appointed the vice captain. And incidentally, from Black Blood is where I played. I got my first cap for the national team. Yeah.
Playing against Zimbabwe.
Against Zimbabwe.
And that was the time I think Joe Masiga was playing both football and rugby for Kenya.
Yes, but Joe did not play in that game.
Yes.
But he was playing rugby rugby and soccer for Kenya.
Called up to the national team when you're at KU, and I think at that time what they used to call the University of Nairobi had been machined. So they were playing in the Kenya Cup, and they were forced to reckon with then. Impala, Queens, Nondis would provide the bulk of the players. What were your experiences with that for your debut call?
It was actually a shock, because it was I just read it in the news. I mean, there was no communication from anybody.
What do you mean? No, not even a telegram to KU?
Not even that. I mean, I just woke up one morning and it was there in the news. I mean, I knew that Zimbabwe were around, and I knew that they had played 2 representative sides, and they had beaten them thoroughly. And at that time, there was a lot of politics about the Kenya national team, because they said you had to be a citizen to play for the Kenya national team. Yes, and I think it's
it's not the rules of domicile that are used right now.
Yeah, and really the only white at that time who qualified as a Kenya citizen was Rod Evans. But I never expected that I was going to get this call-up. I mean, I was following, and of course I was training. I don't even understand, because at that time, they didn't call a squad as such before. Yeah, so it was just announced that, and I was replacing one person who became one of my mentors and one of my best friends, the late Jimmy Owino.
Jimmy Green, Captain Jimmy Green, yes.
Yes, I mean, the news was that I was replacing Jimmy Owino at center.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
And I think at that point in time, Jimmy Green owned that.
Of course.
He owned that number 12.
He was one of the players that I used to admire, and he was one of the players that really made me want to play rugby, because he was good. He was good, and he was big, and he was good, and I never believed, in fact, that I would ever play with him.
Wow.
You see, yeah. And here I was replacing somebody of that status. Yeah, and I was 19 years old. It was yeah.
It was more of a shocker for you.
Of course, and definitely the press came and said all these things. I was inexperienced. How could I come and replace somebody of that status? So taking all that pressure, absorbing all that pressure, and then this was a very important game for Kenya, because remember, it was the first time Zimbabwe came to Kenya. And my God, they were huge. They were 6'2", running at 100 kilometers per hour. I mean, gosh, what was this? It was amazing.
Some game from '95.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah.
Outcome of the game?
Wow, I tell you, 10 minutes to time, the score was 24-24. We almost beat those guys. But there was their captain, a guy called Ian Buchanan, who had a lot of experience. Yeah, he scored a drop goal and then scored a try. So we ended up losing 24-34. But Zimbabwe invited us to Zim. We got the invitation because of that game.
Well, another tournament that I would like to talk about at national team level was the All Africa Games, 1987. Where, Kenya playing against Zimbabwe, Madagascar surprised Kenya.
Yeah.
But then at that point, there was what was this? Looked like more like, how would I describe it? Some marking scheme, 93-6, Nigeria.
Yeah, the All Africa Games, first of all, remember it's the first time that Kenya played in games of that magnitude. And it was a demonstration game, so it was not even a medal game. And there were only 4 teams. There was Nigeria, yes, Kenya, Madagascar, and Zimbabwe. And the preparations were not very good. We didn't really prepare well. We didn't, we didn't expect, we didn't profile the opposition to know what to expect. And then the shock that Madagascar gave us, in that game, because we anticipated everybody, and we never even went to check Madagascar train and all that. It was an assumed thing that we were going to beat Madagascar. So it was 4-3 because they scored a try and we didn't score a try, but we managed to put a kick over. Yeah, but that shock of losing to Madagascar, we really never recovered from it. And then now going to play against Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe was really, really good. But I blame the preparations more because it was more of a physical preparation rather than a technical and a tactical one. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, you decide. I mean, I'd like to move on, to your point in coaching. If we move to some aspects of development, picking up coaching. First of all, as a trainer with Kenya, coaching at Mwamba, coaching at Moi University, you're more of an education person. So somehow you always ended up at universities. KU, twice, being with Black Blood twice, and with KCB before I touch on the national teams. What has been your coaching journey? How have you seen it change over the years?
Yeah, I started off by coaching Mwamba. When I stopped playing for Mwamba, I became coach player, and I think we were doing it with the late Jimmy Owino, one of my friends and mentors. So that was my introduction to coaching. And at that time we didn't have coaching courses, so it was like you go in and learn on the job. Yeah, but when I now went to Moi University, that was now my first experience at coaching. And I went there and found this team called the Arsonists.
University sides and names. Sometime back there's a basketball team called Terrorists and another one called Pirates.
I tell you, I don't know how they decided on the name Arsonists. I didn't like it very much, but the students decided we are the Arsonists. So I moved on with them as the coach of the Arsonists. And I found a group of young, enthusiastic players. Most of them were really from Queens, they had a background with Queens, and I found a group of very passionate players who just needed somebody to give them direction, and that was really my first experience at coaching. Yeah, when I got we actually managed to get to the semi-finals of the Eric Shirley Shield.
Yeah. Coaching KCB here in 95, then going back to KCB and then winning the Kenya Cup 3 times back to back. And the story then was the Kenya Cup has left Ngong Road.
Yes. That to me now is where my coaching was transformed because I was invited. I coached KCB briefly in 95, but at that time, really, we didn't agree on so many things, so I left. But in 2002, the then coach Makandere, who was now chairman of KCB, approached me, and his words were, "Look, can you come and help us? We have run out of ideas." KCB was basically a second string side, just boys who just were playing for fun. Yeah, so I took up the challenge. They gave me a salary which I don't even want to mention because but I took up the challenge, and actually in 2002 we got to the Kenya Cup final.
Yeah.
Yes, I went into KCB. We lost the first 3 games, but we didn't lose any game after that, and we actually got to the Kenya Cup final against Impala. Yeah, but Impala was such a well-drilled side at that time.
Oh, with the late Benja, Steve Bondi.
Yes, the likes, Oscar Osir and all that.
Bilo Dongo.
Yeah, so Impala was really something. But we got to the final in 2002, and that is what gave us the hope and that we can actually make it See, yeah, and it took us just another 2 years in 2004, and we had our first trophy, the Enterprise Cup, in 2004. That is what propelled us now.
And actually, your winners' trophy is
Yes.
one of those many trophies that's
one
all
of these
around
ones
here.
here. The Enterprise Cup, the first trophy in 2004, and that is what now made the players believe in themselves. And 2005, 2006, 2007 was just amazing.
Well, and before joining KCB, you had coached Kenya Sevens 98 to 2000.
Yes.
And you were actually one of the amongst the players who had been picked to play for Kenya Sevens when they started doing, getting into the Sevens series. What is it that you found in 98, 99, 2000 that had changed over about, 15, 16 years?
Also another amazing story, because I was appointed Kenya Sevens coach in 98. Remember, there were no coaching courses, there were no, nothing to fall back on. So it was a very challenging duty, and I never even had a technical bench. It was you as the head coach, there was a team manager, and there was a team doctor, and that was it. So and suddenly we got this opportunity to go to Middlesex Sevens, the first time that we ever went to Twickenham, to play in Twickenham with those players. So it was more of just getting the players together and doing whatever we could do at that time. Yeah, but you see, at the end of the day, we were getting exposed to those levels. We got to Middlesex Sevens, and we actually got a bronze medal, and we won 1 million shillings. It was the first time that there was ever prize money. Yeah.
And according from what I've heard, I think some of the players were in that squad said, wait, this kind of money comes through.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think there was a player who sneaked to go out. Was it Bill Odongo who was invited by some friends?
No.
What happened?
No. What happened at that time is that one of the board members who was there came and received the money and went back with it to Nairobi, when players had already budgeted
music systems,
and there was a street in London that they kept on mentioning that we are going to go to that street, and then suddenly the money was not there, and then we were still going for Amsterdam Sevens the other weekend. So I faced a rebellion in the hotel on Monday with players telling me we are not going to Amsterdam. Yeah.
Wow.
So I had to now negotiate, call the union, and we had to do a lot of talking.
Eventually it was resolved and played in Amsterdam.
Yes, we went and played in Amsterdam. And when we came back, it was now another meeting with the union to see how this money would be divided and all that kind of stuff.
You're coaching the Kenya Simbas 2007 to 2012. What was that for you?
That to me was a journey that led me through a lot of experiences. The first assignment that we got was going to play in Uganda. I inherited a team that was demotivated. There had been no coach for some time. I just inherited a team that was, clueless. I even didn't have players. And suddenly I was told to go on assignment for the Elgon Cup to play a very well-drilled Ugandan side. And I remember losing. I think we lost by 18 points.
Yes, so it was a huge loss.
It was a huge loss.
We still remember the game, and I think you took a lot of stick for that.
And in the return leg now, I had to win the Elgon Cup. So I came in and, of course, reorganized the squad. Yeah, I called in the Injeras, I called in Humphrey, I called in Sudi. I remember I called in a lot of the Sevens players at that time just to beef up the squad. I'm not sure whether Lavin was also in. I think I called him in and talked to the players. And from the beginning of the game, we were 18-0 down because we were chasing 18 points.
Yes.
And amazingly, we won by 1 point. We got 19 points against them, margin of 19. So winning that Elgon Cup for the first time for me again and chasing 19 points was really amazing, and the players never let me down. And from there on, of course, remember I did 5 Elgon Cups in a row.
Yes.
Yeah, and we also We also went to Zimbabwe in 2010, and we beat Zimbabwe there for the first time in history. So there were a lot of amazing experiences also with the Kenya Simbas.
Now, let me bring out something, and this has got to do now from your side. First of all, it's about Kenyatta University and what we would use as a modern day term, devolving rugby. For most who went to Kenyatta University, they became teachers and would be posted all around the country. What was the impact of that in changing the face of the sport in Kenya through the Damu Pevu movement?
That is the reason why we actually formed Damu Pevu, because all of us, most of us were teachers. And for example, me, I was posted somewhere in Homa Bay. Yeah, I remember my friend Max was somewhere in Nandi and all that.
That's Max Muniafu.
Yes, Max Muniafu. And now we decided that can we now form a club of ex-Kenyatta University guys and try and assist in the development of this game. It was something that started off as a joke, and it was something that ended up transforming rugby in this country, because what we did was we did a small proposal, went and gave it to the union, and at that time the union looked at it, and our budget was minimal. We were traveling by public means, we were sleeping in very, very cheap places, we were not so expensive, we were not eating very lavish meals.
Chapati ng'ombe was the thing.
Chapati ng'ombe. The budget was modest. So the union accepted, said we are going to support you with a minimal budget. Oh, it was amazing. That program just changed rugby in this country, and we got it out of Nairobi. Yeah, so it was also an amazing experience with that team of Damu Pevu.
How was schools, picking up this sport? Because they would, football is there, it's exciting, it's got speed, but here is a full contact sport. It's a combination of wrestling and, wrestling and handball and something like that. How was it received?
We focused a lot on Western Kenya, and Western Kenya is where we have players with a physique and the profile of what we are looking for in the game of rugby. Amazingly, the interest was you just couldn't believe it, because what we used to do was we would get somebody in the region to organize in terms of getting permission from the school authorities, and we would go on a Saturday the whole day. I can tell you there's a lot of times we had over 100 kids, and we just couldn't handle it. It was difficult in a day to handle over 100 students who are coming in there with that interest and passion. Yeah, but we managed, because we used to travel a contingent of about 7 guys, at least 4 guys. Yeah.
Places like Nakuru, because Nakuru High School and Njoro were amongst the first to upset the apple cart when it comes to schools rugby.
Yeah, so we didn't focus so much on Nakuru, because we knew rugby was already there. Njoro was already quite a force to reckon with in rugby at that time. There was Menengai, there was Nakuru High. So we didn't focus on Nakuru so much. We focused more on the areas, the outer Rift Valley, like we went to Eldoret and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And doing that work, you've worked as a rugby services manager, and so it's all about development, but this is where now you come in as somebody different. You went into where you teach the University of Nairobi as Mr. Otieno, and a couple of years back you are now Dr. Michael Tank Otieno. And let me just read your PhD in full in education: the influence of the socio-cultural environment on talent identification for rugby players in rugby clubs in Kenya. So there you are, and you've done a lot of things. And let me just pick up some of the conclusions that you simply say this. There is familiar influence on talent identification is not there. Pure influence is significant. Coaches, trying to identify talent for rugby players in rugby clubs is not significant. And this is where the Kenya Secondary School Sports Association are going to get a shock. Secondary school rugby playing experience has no significant influence on talent identification for rugby players in rugby clubs in Kenya. you could just give us some thoughts about this, because you've been a coach, you've been there in development, real at the union, and now here is an academic paper on that.
Yeah, talent identification has always been my passion, and it's still my passion. And I still believe that we are not doing it in the right way in this country. In terms of identifying talent. But I was looking at merely, there are a lot of factors that influence. I took the socio-cultural factors because I wanted to find out, does the influence of family, the issue of family, siblings and all that, does it influence people to go and play rugby? The issue of peers and friends, does it influence? Does it have an influence on somebody to go and play rugby? The issue of coaches, does a player go to a club because of the influence of a coach? Yes. The infrastructure, does a player go there because of infrastructure? Influence of secondary schools, does it do? You see, like you find my KCB team, the majority of them were from St. Mary's Yala when we were winning the Kenya Cup. So is that a factor? Is that a factor? But you see, with academic research, when you take a sample and you have to do a statistical analysis, then you can find there is influence, but the influence is not significant. You see? Yeah, and that's why all those factors, it is only the peer influence that was found to be significant in terms of influencing talent identification. But you can see, we always conclude in an academic paper that maybe more research needs to be done in this area, because remember, we are talking about taking a sample and making a decision about a population.
All right.
Yeah.
One of the recommendations that you actually made in your paper was, let's now bring the real development pathway that existing at the moment, or if we were to call it that, is school games. How much more should, say, the Kenya Rugby Union or even the Kenya Volleyball Federation, Football Kenya Federation, Kenya Basketball Federation do to work with this, with the school game organizers, such that the development pathway exists?
You see, most of our coaches in most of our sports go to the secondary school games to identify talent there and to identify players. And why I don't agree with this is that talent identification should start at a lower level. We need to start identifying these players from the age of 6, even the age of 4. And that is when you start nurturing and developing that talent, because at that particular time, the child mentally has still not got so many things going on in the mental perspective. The child is merely having fun and playing. And that is the time when you can really nurture and develop talent and lead this kid into getting the useful energy into what the kid really likes. So we should start our talent identification at that level, at the primary school level, and set up our own structures. And then you see, once you develop, you must develop a pathway that is going to lead this child into playing for a club, into playing for the junior national team, into playing for senior national team, and probably going into the professional setup to earn some good money.
So ideally what we see, so if a Gor coach, Thika United, I know Thika United had that thing at one point, so basically going to the school games was playing old scouting to fill a gap in the club.
Yeah, and to get players who have already developed some bad habits, skill, social habits that are now difficult to change, have developed the wrong techniques in executing a skill. You get them when they've already developed. For me, I call it bad habits and bad techniques, and then you move them into the elite rugby with and that's why you find even right now, even in our Kenya Sevens team, wishing them luck tomorrow. They're in Hong Kong, but you can find we still have players who can hardly pass.
Oh, by the way, you find the coach saying, "I need to get back to basics."
Precisely.
I've had Mike Friday say that. I've had Damian McGrath say that.
Damian, we are always in touch with him, and he's always saying, "Why do we have to do these things at this level?"
Wow. I think Innocent me also said that once. That something needs to be done. As we conclude, there are 2 plaques I want you to pick, the Mzalendo plaques from the Kenya Rugby Union, and you could tell us about each one of them, the honors that you've been given.
Yeah, this one was introduced by the union, by the Rugby Union, I believe in the early 90s. Yeah, and every year they would pick out somebody and give them this. I don't know what criteria they used, but I think I was picked up for one of them. Yeah, and awarded this, and I think it is something that I'm very proud
Actually,
of.
you could lift it up so that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish the union had continued with this kind of program. Yeah, but they stopped. I don't know why, and then this other one was the one that we were awarded in. Was it in 2015?
It's 2015.
2015
when Kenya played Spain. I think.
Yeah, when Kenya played Spain, and a number of us were called at the union. Basically, the fundamental was the team that played for Kenya.
Against Zimbabwe.
Against Zimbabwe in 1985 and also 1980. Yeah, so a number of us, a lot of them my mentors, came back and we were all given this award. So it has a lot of meaning for me, and I think this kind of thing should be continued.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Dr. Michael Tank Otieno, rugby coach and scholar. Well, you know, it's been a pleasure speaking to Dr. Michael Tank Otieno. Many of the people around, Kenya, they know him as a coach in the sport of rugby, but also he teaches at the University of Nairobi, and he has done a doctoral thesis, and this is all about the environment, the social cultural aspects of environment on talent identification for rugby players in rugby clubs in Kenya. You can basically say on the pitch, off the pitch, in the classroom, he's a rugby man through and through. It's been a pleasure speaking to Dr. Michael Tank Otieno. My name is Daniel Wahome, and thank you for watching.